Hey guys, it's Brett from Window Wiz, and today I'm going to be teaching you how to fix your constant force balance windows. Not only that, but I'm going to be teaching you how to retrofit them as well to accept new and modern hardware. There's a lot of windows out there, especially hung windows, that have old, outdated hardware that is not manufactured anymore. So what I like to do when I encounter them is measure them up and see if I can modify them to accept the Caldwell quick tilt constant force balances. The reason why I do that is because they're high quality, they're easy to source, they're affordable, and future maintenance is incredibly easy once you've got them installed. Now, before we get started, we're going to want to make sure we have some supplies. You're going to want to make sure you have your constant force balances, pivot bars, an X-Acto knife, a multi-tip screwdriver and a drill, a pencil, measuring tape, safety gloves, and safety glasses. Now that we've got everything, we're good to go. Let's get right into the repair. Before we get started, you're going to want to measure the width and depth of your window channel where the constant force balance resides. You're going to be looking for at least 1 1/4 inch width and 9/16 inch depth. Now we can remove the window by pressing in the tilt latches so the window can be tilted to 90 degrees. Next, you're going to want to raise one side of the window upward. If you're replacing a well-designed balance system, you should be able to easily remove the window by raising the window up and out. This particular system has a bad design where the pins sit inside of an enclosed hole, and since this window locks in the open position, it requires some force to move one corner of the window upward. Now this next step is only applicable to the window that you're going to be repairing. Make sure to release the tension on the coil balance by inserting a flathead screwdriver into the shoe and turning 90 degrees. Depending on how heavy your windows are, this is going to instantly create upward force, which can be quite strong. Make sure to hold the screwdriver firmly as this part can shoot upward if not done correctly. Now I'm going to remove the second window. I'm only removing it because it's the window that is broken and needs repair. Now, in order to determine the strength of balance you need, you're going to need to figure out how much your window weighs. Some balance systems have a number written on the side that will tell you the balance's strength. For example, a 4 would represent 4 pounds. However, this window has no indication of the strength of balance, so we need to weigh the window. As you can see, the window comes out at 17 pounds. When using the Caldwell quick tilt balances, the way you would determine your balance strength is by dividing the window's weight in half. Since this is an odd number, I'm going to start with 2 8-pound window balances and see how it works. If the window slides too easily or cannot hold itself upward, I will use 2 9-pound balances instead. Next, we're going to replace the pivot bars on this window as this balance system has their own proprietary pins. In my experience, most windows have the pivot bars openly exposed on the bottom of your window. However, this window had them covered. I replaced these pivot bars by lining up the ends and marking the new screw hole locations with a pencil. Next, I held the pivot bar in place and screwed downward. There wasn't a need to pre-drill as vinyl is very soft and in my experience does not crack when driving a screw into it without a pilot hole. Next comes the fun part. Most windows will have a vinyl cap that covers an opening where the balance can be removed. If you're watching this video and your window does not have a vinyl cap and is also lacking a cutout, please pause here and navigate to the blog post I have linked in the description. Since this window doesn't have a cutout, I'm going to make one by marking the top of the vinyl cap with a pencil. I am then going to remove the cap and line up the balance with equal distance between the bottom of the channel and the top of the cap. The cutout does not need to be the exact size of the balance, so I usually shrink this opening by 3/4 of an inch or slightly more. This gives the vinyl cap plenty of material to snap onto. Next, you're going to want to get a sharp X-Acto knife and make 4 horizontal cuts that will mark the top and bottom of the cutout. This will make it easier when doing the longer vertical cuts and will prevent you from cutting too far. Next, you're going to want to trim the channel vertically, making sure to go between the top and the bottom horizontal cuts that you made. Now that the cutouts are complete, we can begin by removing the old balances. Before removing any screws, make sure that you have released the tension on the balance as shown earlier in the video. Once the screws are removed, you can slide the balance towards the cutout and remove. The balances were pretty tight when removing, so I ended up grabbing a pair of pliers to help pull them out.
Before we insert the new balances, make sure to turn the shoe so that the opening is facing towards you. This makes sure the lock is disengaged and makes inserting the balance very easy. If your balance comes marked with an L or an R, make sure to put the balance marked with L on the left side and the balance marked with R on the right side. Now you can slide the balance up and mount the balance through the original screw hole. The old balances had 2 screws, however we chose to use the upper hole for this application as this made sure the balance allowed the window to close fully without interfering. When tightening up the screws, make sure not to over tighten. You just want them to be snug. Now you're going to insert your flathead screwdriver into the shoe and pull downward. I would go halfway down to give yourself some space. Once the balance is where you want it to be, turn the screwdriver so the shoe opening is facing upward, which will engage the lock. You're then going to repeat this step on the opposite side, making sure to have the balance in the exact same location. Once that's done, you can insert your window into the channel and place the pivot bars into the shoe opening. Once the window is resting in the shoe, you can push the window up towards the frame, making sure the tilt latches at the top of the window snap into the channel. Now we can snap in our vinyl covers and lubricate the window channel. This is also a good time to go and spray your other constant force balance windows. For older balance windows that haven't been replaced yet, if you're able to spray the lubricant on the coil itself, that should help you out a lot with the operation of your windows. Lastly, we're going to insert the final window. Since we did not replace the balance on this window, inserting it is a bit of a tricky process. You need to play around with your balance locations to get it just right. What I like to do is get the balances in such a location where the left side pivot bar can be inserted into the pivot shoe. And then when lowering the right side of the window, the pin will just barely hit the bottom of the opening of the other shoe. Once you're in this location, you need to lift the left side of your window upward, which will push the right side pivot bar into the pivot shoe. Now you can close the window.
And now we're done. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found the video helpful. And if you have any questions or suggestions for future videos, please leave them in the comments below. When installing this type of hardware and doing this type of retrofit, you can run into a load of problems. Now, instead of making the video an hour long, I decided to write a detailed blog post outlining all the sort of weird situations you might encounter and how I would personally solve them and how I have solved them in the past. And with that said, we're done. Thank you so much and have a good one.